welcome to Metro Talk. With us this week is Pat Gowan, one of the editors of the Post-Dispatch. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Tim.
Also with us is Jim Schrader, the publisher of the Telegraph. How are you, sir?
Hi, Tim.
Pat, we'll start with you this week. The Republican candidate for the Madison County Auditor says the incumbent, Fred Bathan, has taken, quote-unquote, tainted donations because those donations came... Rick Fasten, the incumbent, has taken... This is a very confusing story. Rick Fasten has taken donations from Fred Bathan, the former treasurer. Jeremy Plank, the challenger who's making these accusations, says the money is tainted because Bathan received contributions from taxpayers. So, in other words, he's saying that Fasten took tainted donations 3 times removed. Do you agree with this premise?
Well, I agree that the political mudslinging season is in full voice. Fred Bathan was the county treasurer. There are some serious questions about the way he ran the sales of tax delinquent property. Enough that we know the FBI has served search warrants that we believe are looking for information about this. I think it's fair to guess there's a federal investigation, the way that was run. How that's going to turn out, I don't have a clue. But that was what Bathan is sort of under some taint by people who think it was not properly run. Now, Bathan has given money to fellow Democrat Fasten's reelection campaign. Fasten said what he did was to buy a basket at a fundraiser, a bid on a basket for $810, and gave him $250 besides. Plank, the Republican, says the money is tainted because it's coming from Bathan, who he says took $150,000 from the buyers of the tax delinquent property who may have gotten favors, or at least that's the allegation that's been made. Not criminally, but in general. Anyway, so Fasten's fired back that Plank, who works for Kurt Prenzler, the current county treasurer, Republican, is responsible for wasting taxpayer money and costing the money on a bad investment and on personally not keeping up with payments of property taxes on his own property. A lot of mudslinging back and forth, very hard for the public to know what to make of it. I'm never a fan of gratuitous mudslinging, although I do think it is interesting to see that Madison County, so Democrat for so long, where you had token Republican candidates at best against incumbent, token Republican candidates at best against incumbent Democrats, that there are some lively races. There's some life in these things and attracting some attention. And it shows that there's a real possibility of the Republicans holding office. They've got some in Madison County, and the Democrats are going to have to fight for what they've got for the first time. And I don't mean the first election because the Republicans have been making inroads, but generationally, sort of for the first time in about a generation.
Is that a nice way of saying mudslinging? It's lively?
Well, lively's a nice way of justifying mudslinging. I don't know how much these particular accusations help the taxpayers decide.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sort of a pragmatist about electing people to office. When a guy comes to fix my washing machine, I don't ask whether he's pro-choice or pro-life. I don't ask how he feels about Affordable Health Care Act. I just want to know if he can fix my washing machine. And for some of these jobs, like county auditor, like county treasurer, these aren't policy-making things. They're not going to affect our lives much in policy. This has to do with, can the guy run an efficient office to do the job at hand? And I kind of doubt whether a lot of these ancillary issues have very much to do with that.
With the actual job. Jim, is what Jeremy Plank's saying, do you buy this whole premise that because Fred Bathan received $150,000 and possibly gave part of that, or maybe not even that actual money, to Rick Fasten in the form of bidding on a basket and giving the rest? Do you buy that whole premise?
Well, first of all, Fred Bathan hasn't been charged or convicted of anything. So to say that this money is tainted in and of itself is a bit of a stretch. As Pat has pointed out, the FBI has done some searching about it, and I suspect that there is an ongoing investigation. And in defense of Auditor Rick Fasten, he indicated that if Fred Bathan were to be charged with something and found guilty, that he would return this money. Because then indeed it would be tainted and not through a series of connecting the dots allegedly tainted. So in this particular case, it is mudslinging pure and simple. You know, Jeremy Plank is not running against Fred Bathon. Fred Bathon didn't report to Rick Fassen, nor vice versa. So to indicate some type of guilt on Fassen's part for something that went on in the treasurer's office is certainly a stretch. I can say, and I about to celebrate my 33rd year in the newspaper business, and this is the ugliest local campaigns that I think I've ever seen. I mean, on the national scale, certainly we've all seen some pretty national, or some pretty ugly campaigns. But locally, this is, I think, the mudslinging and digging into decades-old charges and decades-old liens. This is kind of a new height for everybody. In this particular case, I don't agree with the premise that the money is tainted. In such case that Fred Bathon were to be charged with something, if Fassen makes good and says, I'll give you the $1,050 or $1,060 back, because then they are proven to be tainted, I think that's as far as you can. You got to give points, however, to the Plank campaign, because these guys are trying anything they can to paint the incumbents with a black brush.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Hi, I'm Audrey Lucchese, and I'm from Alton, Illinois. I love music, and that's why I came to Lewis & Clark. It's been an amazing experience here at Lewis & Clark, working with students that are so talented, coming from all over the area, and they work so hard to follow their dreams. The music faculty at Lewis & Clark they're fantastic, and they're there every step of the way to push you to follow your dreams. One of the unique opportunities that I have had at Lewis & Clark is being able to record my own music with a fellow student here. Being able to record our music has opened doors for us in the music industry. My long-term goal is to finish here at Lewis & Clark and then to transfer to a four-year school and finish my degree in music performance. I would recommend Lewis & Clark to another student because it is definitely a great place to get started, and it can open so many doors for you.
Big dreams and good grades aren't enough to get into college. There are actual steps you need to take. Finding someone who can help is the first and most important. For the next steps, go to knowhowtogo.org.
Back to Metro Talk. Jim, is this election season going to be a bigger challenge for all the incumbents in the area as compared to other election years?
Well, as I said in the first segment, this is the ugliest that I have seen in quite some time. It's always easier to criticize an incumbent because they have sat in the chair. It's easy to say, I could be a better host than you, Tim.
Yes, you could.
No, I don't mean it that way. It's easy to say that if you've never sat there. Yeah. It's easy for candidate Romney, for example, to criticize the job done by the President of the United States, though he's never been the President of the United States. That said, I would not want to be an incumbent right now, especially for statewide office, because people are angry right now. It's the ire of some of the letters to the editor that we see. People are just, they're mad at situations, they're mad at taxes, they are mad at their home values. They're mad at their 401ks. They're mad at everything. And many people think, well, the only thing I can do is vote. And the incumbents, by association, are guilty. They were there. And the anti-incumbent sentiment, I think, is going to have a fair amount of sway come next Tuesday. We're taping this on the 30th. Next Tuesday is Election Day, and I think the anti-incumbent sentiment it is going to be a game changer for a lot of races.
Pat, Jim mentioned we tape this on Tuesday, so 1 week from today is Election Day. Is this season and is next Tuesday going to prove more difficult for the incumbents that are in office right now than in years past?
I think every incumbent bears the burden of all incumbents. If you're in office, people blame you for things that your office may have nothing to do with. But if you're in office, you must be, by association, at the least guilty of something when things aren't economically or in whatever mode the way you'd want them to be. So I think it's difficult to be an incumbent, but that having been said, mostly, and especially at the local level, the incumbents usually win. So there is a great advantage in that. In the end, when people get to the voting booth, they tend to gravitate, in many cases, to the name with which they have some passing familiarity. They might not really know them, but in the end, it's like a familiar name means a lot. So I think that probably matters. I think we're having such an ugly election season on the local level because something we touched on earlier, the minority parties have a chance. Yeah. You've got the Republicans spending money to go after incumbent Senator Bill Hayne, to go after incumbent Representative Dan Beiser.
And spending lots
of money in races that in years gone by no one would have spent money for because there was no way of hoping that you were going to elect the opponent. So in a way, while the negativism and the nastiness are just awful, it is emblematic that things have sort of evened up a bit. Now, we have no statewide race in Illinois. None of the state constitutional officers are up for election. But in the three big races in Metro East, the three broadest scope races, which are for Congress, two of those three congressmen, Jerry Costello and Tim Johnson, are not running for re-election. So there is no incumbent in two of the three races. That's a very unusual thing for us. And the third race is very unusual as well because John Shimkus, the incumbent Republican, is running against a Democrat who is actually substantially more conservative than he is. And he's a conservative brand Republican. So that's all kind of mishmashed for 2012. And I'm beginning to wonder, what does this portend for 2014 when the state constitutional offices will be up? We won't have a presidential race, but make no mistake, we're going to see a lot of negativism in TV ads and a lot of holding people's feet to the fire over the problems of the state of Illinois.
Is this one of the nastier local races that you've covered? And I know you've been around it longer than I have.
It is, but all races have become nastier. And I think the big thing that's happened, it isn't that they're nastier, it's that they're races at all. People are saying nasty things about Dan Beiser and Bill Hayne and back and forth, but at another time, nobody would have been spending any money because the Democrat incumbents wouldn't have needed to spend anything to keep the seats, and the Republicans wouldn't have wasted the money. So maybe it would have been as bad in another time if it had been competitive, but it's not. It wasn't. So now it is. So I think it is nastier. The tone of it all is nastier, and then the magnitude of it's come up because we've got more races in play.
Talking about the seat that Jerry Costello held and has held for a long time, is the Democrat for that, is he in an incumbent spot because he's also a Democrat, or is it a brand new ball game because
I think it is
there's no name recognition?
I think it is a brand new ball game, and of course he wasn't even the original. It's Bill Enyart is the Democrat running against Jason Plummer, the Republican. Enyart had no real name recognition. He was the adjutant general of the Illinois National Guard, commander of the National Guard. We didn't have a very high profile. Plummer had run for office as lieutenant governor before. In a way, Plummer probably had as much profile politically as Enyart had. Enyart wasn't the original choice of the Democrats. Brad Harriman was, and he dropped out of the race. So I don't really think there's much incumbent